I'm Tracy Finara, and we are at EarthX 2026, and I am here with Sweta. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Same. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you have done so much climate policy, risk communication, your incredible podcast that has been so successful, which is hard to do. I want to know everything.
As you know, with your own podcast too. So from one podcaster to another, yeah, it's definitely, it's got to be a passion project, which for us it really was. So just to give kind of some context, I've known about EarthX for some time. I'm so excited to be here in this beautiful city. Really incorrect perception of Texas being too hot. It's been perfect weather. So we are so pleased that my company and organization, We Don't Have Time, can show up and support and amplify all of the content that's happening here on the ground in Dallas. I'm all about telling good stories that are happening in the sustainability and climate space because communication is so key to actually inspiring and amplifying and accelerating a lot of the great work that's underway here in Texas, around the country, and ultimately around the world. We know that if we are going to keep the planet from warming beyond, being able to comfortably habitate, we have got to accelerate all of the great tools in our toolkit and all of the solutions that are in the pipeline. So my organization, We Don't Have Time, that's what we do. I'm also here with my Scientista hat on. That's the name of my podcast and the name of my organization. It's all about amplifying the voices of amazing women like yourself, Tracy, and just sharing the work that is happening at the highest levels of decision-making and leadership in public sector, private sector by women. And through the combination of leading with science and having more women in these roles, we are going to see some of the solutions that we're talking about here for the next week really come into fruition. And we couldn't bring it on faster.
That's amazing. I love your take on communication and leadership and that connection between the two. You've done so much. What was that one moment or event that really started your path?
I'm so fascinated by human behavior and ultimately the fact that we're all irrational. It's the one thing humans have in common all over the world. Regardless of what we look like on the outside, we are still influenced by cognitive triggers that affect our perceptions around what we are worried about or don't care about. So, for example, people are scared to get on planes, but they're way less scared to drive a car. Ultimately, much more fatalities associated with driving a car than getting on a plane, right? That's an example I like to use. And there's so many of those. Now, applying that same concept to something like sustainability, global sustainability, infectious disease outbreaks, food issues, there's implications for human beings being irrational and us policymakers being able to allocate accurate resources that commensurate with the reality of the risks that we as humans face. So as human beings, real risk for us right now is heat, right? It's flooding, it's hurricanes, it's all of these different impacts that accompany a planet that is warming. But if we don't get enough attention on it, we're not going to accurately allocate the right resources to protect us from those risks. So as a behavioral scientist and as a communication science advocate, I am all about how to use communication to correct for that human irrationality, those incorrect perceptions, and in the case of climate change, the underreaction to a lot of the risks associated with climate change, so that ultimately we can protect ourselves, our families, our communities, from a local level all the way to a multilateral level.
Yeah, I mean, and there's two things that I thought of while you were speaking, and one of them is people's apprehension towards change and almost a refusal towards change and the perceived risk increasing just because it's change.
Right? So familiarity is one of those cognitive triggers where human beings are less scared of things that are familiar. It's why we don't get worried about cardiovascular. When's the last time you were really worried about having a heart attack or a stroke, right?
Right.
But that's the #1 killer worldwide is actual cardiovascular outcomes.
Right.
And nobody cares about that in the same way or fears that because it's so familiar. Whereas something like nuclear energy sparks a lot of fear because the catastrophic potential, the fact that there has been links to accidents in the past, there's that relationship with nuclear war. And it's really important. My role as a behavioral scientist in this space is to support, like an industry like nuclear, for example, to disassociate the perception and the reality so that, in this case, nuclear technology can reach its commercial fruition, right? It can reach that commercial viability, because we don't have the luxury of leaving any tools out of the toolkit. And when we think about the immensity of what is coming with, needing to address all of the impacts related to the planet, we have got to ensure that every tool is available to us. And my contribution to that is making sure that we're communicating all of that accurately. And we can't let little things like familiarity get in the way.
Right. The second thing I thought of was just the fact that climate change seems so big, right? And the impacts are a little bit, we're all contributing to it. And we think it's something that the impacts are in the future. Now, we know that the impacts are right here and now, but it's really hard for people to wrap their head around the impact that they can make on a regular basis, and for policymakers to prioritize that over something that might be, more acute and right here and now.
That's a great point, and that's a great question too. You raised this isn't happening at the moment, and it's again that inaccurate perception that climate change is in the future, it's slow moving, it's far away, and some pieces of it are slow moving and in the future, like sea level rise, which is why the risk of saltwater inundation into coastal communities isn't top of mind. And so as a communicator, my job is to make what feels far in the future immediate. How do we actually accurately communicate real actions that need to be taken now to prevent risks that are coming, that we know are coming, that the data and the science have accurately, have showcased that this is what we're going to be facing, and we need to proactively protect our communities right here and right now. So I'm fully with you on that.
Yeah.
That's a critical piece of communication, is making things relevant, because people have so many other things that they have to think about and worry about, right?
Right.
So.
And in America, a lot of us have the luxury of worrying about environment. But the mind-blowing thing about what you just said is that saltwater intrusion, it's happening now.
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm an environmental engineer, and what I used to say is that we're the silent superheroes. We're the ones that make your trash go away and make the water go away when you flush your toilet. And it's like a secret thing, right? And you just don't even think about it. And the truth is, if you look at water quality maps on a regular basis, you see bacteria counts spike. And we're seeing it more and more, not only because of aging infrastructure, but also the groundwater table is increasing in coastal areas because of sea level rise and saltwater intrusion, not to mention the water quality problems at the treatment plants.
Totally.
So it's happening now, and people don't know because we've always protected them from their impacts.
Right. And it allows the public to get complacent, right?
Yeah.
If there isn't a major infectious disease outbreak like a COVID, people are complacent. Nobody's really worried about a pandemic when there isn't a pandemic. So it's our job as policymakers, as communicators, to make these things relevant, because this is the time that we create those protections and the policies. And I know that this is what you're really interested in, and what we wanted to talk about is how do we use communication to develop policies now that really protect and secure our communities. And saltwater intrusion is a great example of that. We need to raise awareness to the public so that they can get behind, ultimately money. Money is scarce. Why would you allow for a major engineering infrastructure project when there's so many other issues? That's the challenge. So I was in New York City after Hurricane Sandy, and immediately following Hurricane Sandy, there was so much interest around safeguarding New York City against another major hurricane. A few years go by, publics get complacent, infrastructure project delayed, stalled, money reallocated towards other things. That's what we need to figure out. And that's where communication science comes in, because we need to keep these types of safeguards top of mind, because we know inevitably there is going to be storm surges related to hurricanes. The data, the science are showing that that is the case. So what are we going to do as a community to safeguard ourselves?
You're exactly right. People have short memories.
Yep.
And if the people aren't complaining about something, policy isn't upheld.
Exactly.
It's ignored for other priorities. In Florida, we have something called Captains for Clean Water. It's a group of captains that, after the Florida water crisis, it was a dual toxic algae bloom, but they took that momentum of that crisis and ran with it and have just amplified in all of the years that we haven't had this like major crisis. And they've really successfully, I love using them as an example because that's like the people coming together with you, like a communicator, to make something powerful and long lasting.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the key, right? Is how do you tell a story and showcase real world examples so that you can move support, public support, to very science-based policies. This is the struggle. This is the challenge that we face in our day-to-day work. But I have real confidence and belief in the public for if we take the time to understand, this comes full circle back to what I said in the beginning about humans being irrational. If we take the time to understand how humans process information, how the audiences that we want to communicate to, how they'll receive what we're saying. Maybe we don't say climate change. That doesn't work for everyone. That's okay. Let's just speak and communicate respectfully to audiences' values and what they care about, and watch, we'll get the support. And we need that support to protect our communities ultimately.
In your experience, what has been the most impactful platforms that you've used, or events, or whatever those moments are that you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually working?
Yeah, EarthX is a great one, quite frankly. We're in Texas. If we can get it right in Texas, we can get it right in the rest of the country. This bipartisan approach and really just leading with what is American and value-based that we all have in common, which is love for family and protecting our communities against risk, whatever form they come in, whether it's infectious disease or hurricanes or heat, whatever. We know we have that in common, that we want to protect the people we love, that we want to protect American values. So I love that this event is happening and that these conversations are happening, because this can go a long way. And then you take the content from a conference like this that really brings together so many diverse Americans, right? And those that are our friends from around the world as well. And you take that content and you push it out on social media. So my organization, We Don't Have Time, we are a social media platform, and we partner with all of these other media platforms, and we get the word out that way, and ultimately have 250 million reach month to month. That is key and critical in this current global environment where people get their information from YouTube and from TikTok and from LinkedIn. So understanding how to actually distribute information, the key is, how do people actually process information?
Yeah.
We know that, that's behavioral science. The second piece of this is, where do they get their information? And we know where they get it. It's YouTube, it's social media. So we need to be smart about how we're releasing this information. And then finally, who are they hearing it from, right? So I might not be the perfect communicator for a particular audience, but we sure as hell can find out who is. And then we can provide that information in partnership and allow that communicator to then reach their audience that trusts them how they know best. We don't need to micromanage communicators. So it's key to build partnerships in the US and around the world with trusted communicators that can reach their audiences with information that's relevant to them. That's really important.
I love that you said that, especially the who is delivering the message. That's more important than ever right now.
Yeah. In fact, my PhD research was all about what role trust plays in a decision outcome, right? So it's so hard to say that this person is going to do this. Let's say we want person A to take action B. How do we predict that they are going to do that? Well, the number one predictor that will get somebody to take an action that we want is if the message is coming from somebody that they trust. That is key.
That is really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and all of the expertise that you have, because I think that behavioral science is really something that needs to be brought to the forefront within the scientific community as well, because we don't do a good job.
Yeah.
We don't, especially with weather. So thank you so much for all the work that you do.
And thank you for the work you do. This is what it comes down to, policy at local levels, and then ultimately how that gets scaled up to national protections, and ultimately we're one species on one planet. So there's no such thing as borders when it comes to some of these risks that we've been talking about, right?
Nope, water,
We've
air,
got to do this work.
borders.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.